Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel, to our podcast. In today's episode, we are taking it outside because it feels finally warm today. I want to share with you some of my observations this year being a coach, and after seeing hundreds of clients this year, both men and women. This topic today is going to be about relationships. Have you ever been ghosted? Or when you're in a talking stage, all of a sudden, a man pulls away and you feel this distance between you two. It's pretty common nowadays, and every woman that I've spoken to has experienced this. It can be very confusing and painful. You feel rejected, you feel neglected, you feel like you are in limbo. But let me tell you the deeper psychological reason behind why men grow distant. When I learned this, it was one of those aha moments, and it really opened my mind even more to seeing other people from their wounding instead of just absorbing that energy towards me, like, what is wrong with me, all of these things. Men and women are not the same. Men are black and white, and women are dynamic. Men are logic, and women are emotionally led. The way men process emotions, especially intense emotions like desire or longing, even love, is so different from the way that women do. I find that when I'm in sessions with men, they have a harder time articulating what they are feeling. And so, as a coach, it is my job to hold space for them and to ask the right questions. Even if I had to sit an hour and a half waiting for them to open up, and only in the last minute they tell me the real cause of their suffering or the discomfort they're feeling, I have to pry it out of them. And then finally, they open up, and it's like, okay, there it is. There's your heart and the human inside of you. When you've been wearing this facade, this mask of who you're trying to be, and finally it's like their heart starts to open up. It is one of the most incredible feelings as a coach when you see your client really start to open up and soften up. You've created this safe space for them. So the male brain is influenced by testosterone. It is wired to prioritize problem solving and compartmentalization. Whenever these intense emotions arise, the amygdala, which is our brain's threat detector, this triggers a fight or flight response. So for men, socialized to equate vulnerability with weakness, emotional intimacy can feel like a threat to their autonomy. This activates their prefrontal cortex control mechanism, leading them to retreat as a form of preservation. So, this is when they go silent on you or you get ghosted. Understanding this neurobiological response helps us reframe silence not as a form of rejection, but as a psychological recalibration. Men, especially those conditioned with a demand of competence, success, control, they often struggle with emotional expression. They may seem cold or detached, and this is where the shadow of toxic masculinity comes. Our societal conditioning, boys are often taught to equate emotions or expressions with fragility. For example, boys don't cry, while their worth is tied to achievement and stoicism. So, this creates almost like a split self, the persona of the competence mask, the inner world of unprocessed fear, and then there's that longing. And when a man begins to crave a woman deeply, he isn't just confronting his feelings, he's confronting a lifetime of conditioning that labels his vulnerability as a failure. So he goes and retreats, and it is often a battle between the authentic desire and the ingrained belief that needing someone undermines his masculinity. They don't always articulate what they feel, or he may pull back or stay silent. While on the woman, on the other hand, we are naturally expressive. We always say, I feel, I feel, I feel. We are inclined to talk about our emotions, to share, to seek connection, which is our strength. As women, we immediately interpret this as, oh, I'm getting ghosted, or he just used me. He doesn't really care enough. That silence is a form of neglect, but that's not always the case. Women get into panic mode, and our nervous system registers it as a threat or that you're about to lose something important to you. Like, oh my God, why is he not replying? You can't stop thinking about them, etc. This becomes very dysregulating in our bodies. And what happens is very complex and very fascinating. This is where the miscommunication happens. The more that I learn about human behavior and condition, it's given me a real understanding of what it is to live like a man. And this anxious avoidant trap creates this vicious cycle, and breaking it requires both parties, man and woman, to recognize our roles. Men must lean into the discomfort, while women should practice grounding and self assurance. One of my mentors this year, her name is Kasia, and she is a phenomenal Taoist trained Dom. I had to go all out in this upcoming course that I'm creating. And one of the things she's taught me is the power dynamics, the art of effortless influence. And I've never been so in awe of her power as a woman that she can make any man kneel before her, but not in a tyrant way, in a very bolstering, I will hold you and take you where you need to go kind of way. In a dungeon, it is explicitly forbidden to perform any sexual acts. It is a safe space to just explore and play. One of the most important things that she's taught me is about shame. And shame is one of those things, it's like a big spectrum of different types of emotions. In Taoist principle, action through non action, they say, be like water. An embodied woman doesn't force or demand, instead, she allows. And in this dynamic, the submissive will relinquish control, but only within a container of absolute trust. And when this happens, the alchemy of this partnership is so just magnificent. And similarly, in a relationship, a woman, her calm presence becomes this container where a man feels safe to unravel because your masculine energy as a woman, we all have feminine, masculine inside of us, it is boosted. And then the masculine, your partner, feels safe enough to be in feminine energy. And this isn't passivity, it's a strategic receptivity. By focusing on your own radiance, which is rooted in your sacral and root chakra, you become this gravitational force. You are inviting him to step forward without coercion. In conversations, there is this invisible energetic cord, and you go back and forth. Who is the submissive? Who is dominant? You're asking questions. An embodied woman knows how to direct this energy out and notices where the subtle life force is. This is where our intuition, we're really enhancing these subtle messages with other people's bodies. This is what makes you a good intuitive. She carefully senses their body and the subtle cues, super highly attuned, and knows how to command to make someone open up. And it's just this beautiful, dark feminine. And in that moment, when you hear the weight of her words, the power, it demands respect. It is competence, power, it is nobility at its finest. And so we were working on emotional alchemy and how to cultivate more of this desire and ecstasy. When you have this juicy life force burning inside of you, you have so much vitality. You are just radiant. Your voice sounds different. You don't even need to market yourself. I don't do any marketing because I just cultivate my energy. You become magnetic and people get attracted to you. You aren't speaking from just your head and your throat anymore. You go deep, so deep in your body, and your sacrum is like this bowl, and you go even deeper into your root. So you have that burning life force energy. And in Chinese medicine, they call this the qi or your prana. I've had a lot of distortions around my throat and my thyroid. You can probably hear it in my voice as I go deeper into my body. So, right now, I'm speaking right around my solar plexus. I'm moving it down to my sacrum. You can absolutely move the energy of where you're speaking. So, if you notice some women, they're always like, oh my God, they're always up here. But the true mastery is moving and embodying that energy deeper into your body. The more you are present, the more you are in 0 point. And that's something that I've worked tremendously, seeing a lot of different coaches, because it's that chakra center that gives clarity and bold messaging that when you speak, it just hits. And now let's talk about the alchemy of sacred embodiment. As women, instead of externalizing so much that you're a victim, knowing that you are in control and have the power to change your surroundings is very crucial. Emotional alchemy begins when women transmute insecurity into sovereignty. Patriarchal narratives, since the dawn of time, often frame women's worth through male validation. It wasn't too long ago that women were properties, and it is so deeply ingrained in us for eons. We grew up watching Snow White and Sleeping Beauty that only a true love's kiss can revive us. However, sacred embodiment rejects this. So practices like somatic meditation, breath work, this helps us reconnect women to our primal life force, which is our kundalini, shifting communication from throat logic to more into our womb, our intuition. And when a woman speaks from her root, her voice carries just this frequency of unshakable truth. It is true competence and power. It is the dark feminine that commands respect without demand. It is not manipulation, but just this magnetic authenticity. When a man becomes too emotionally involved too quickly, it can feel as though he is losing control of himself, of his own stability. And that can be very terrifying for them. For a man, control isn't just about keeping his emotions at check or maintaining his identity, his autonomy, and his sense of self. He has spent years constructing his world carefully and keeping his emotions compartmentalized so that they don't interfere with his ambitions, responsibilities, his sense of self, and all of a sudden feeling an overwhelming desire for a woman. This can be very destabilizing. This is when he starts to withdraw. His silence is not necessarily a lack of care, but it is his response to the inner conflict that he feels. And in an attempt to maintain equilibrium to process his feelings without making him feel weak or vulnerable, this is when he retracts. A man's ego is something, I tell you. So, however, here's something crucial that we all need to understand. Men, especially those that are strong, intelligent, competent men, do not like feeling out of control. They don't like feeling exposed and emotionally raw. They don't like feeling as though someone else holds too much power over their inner world. So, what does he do? He retreats, he goes quiet, he pulls away, he might be distant and indifferent. This is the make it or break it in a relationship. If you're a woman who is emotionally attached, you may have a father wound or neglect or abandonment wounds. You want to chase or go after him. Even when you're not texting, energetically, you are chasing for it. You feel drained, you feel resentful, you feel neglected, you want reassurance, you want clarity. You're like a crackhead wanting for another hit. And the more you chase, the more he retreats. But now, it's not just his emotions he's struggling. It is the added pressure of needing to explain something he may not fully understand himself or have the vocabulary to articulate what he's exactly feeling. It's like you're in a train ride going to a destination, and halfway through, he hops off early and he's like, whoa, 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 slow down. I don't think I can keep going to this journey or travel. I have baggage that I have not taken a look at yet. Another layer is that men are deeply tied to their sense of purpose. A man's self worth is often measured by how much he can give, how much he can achieve, how much he can provide value to the world. So when he meets a woman he truly desires, a woman that stirs something deep within him, it's not just attraction. He feels the weight of responsibility. This is where I feel for most men. I have a brother. I grew up with my cousins who were all men. My previous mentors were all men. He begins to ask himself, can I provide for her? Can I be the man that she needs? Am I strong enough to handle this? If there is a little doubt he feels inadequate in any way, his ego or his nervous system will kick in and retreat, not talk through those fears. They withdraw until he gains clarity. And so, what do? Just let him. Of all the things that I've learned from healthcare and seeing patients, you cannot change anyone who doesn't want to change. Only until they want to change that they're going to work on it. You can only hold space for their growth. Everybody is on their own journeys. However, this is where the feminine's role is. We're not here to convince him, but we are here to model wholeness. I am complete with or without you. It's important for women to understand that a man's silence is not always a verdict on his feelings, but a way for him to sort through his foggy emotions. He doesn't have words for it yet. His mind is clouded, waiting to come to terms with what he wants and if he's already ready for it. I know, it's a paradox. And if a woman reacts to the silence with neediness, you start to panic and attempt to force a response, you will inadvertently push him away. The best way is to do the opposite, to be unbothered by his retreat. When you start to loosen up, you loosen that energetic grip, his fear diminishes. Then respect is restored. Respect for her deepens, and he feels safe to go back to her, not out of obligation, but of genuine admiration and desire. Men don't want to be needed in a desperate way. They want to be desired in a way that respects autonomy. They want to feel like they can come towards you effortlessly, not because you demand it, but because they choose it. The more embodied you are as a woman, you have self assurance, you are radiant, and you have this quiet confidence, the less likely his silence will drive you into insecurity. It's just a temporary pause. Recognizing our patterns and understanding our behaviors mirrors how others react towards us. The more that you self reflect, you allow others to step into their power too. A true feminine is in her receiving. So go live your life, go touch grass. What's truly meant for you will come back in a higher order. Men have a deep, almost primal fear of vulnerability. It is human nature, it's biology, it's something ingrained in them for years, lifetimes, deeply in our epigenetics. The world tells men to be strong, to be competent, to be in control, and vulnerability threatens all of that. When a man truly craves a woman, he desires her not just physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. It changes him deeply. And a man's deepest instinct is to protect himself from pain, not just from physical pain, but from emotional devastation, from psychological exposure. And this is the kind of suffering that shakes the very foundation of his identity. Men inherit their father's unresolved shame, just as women inherit your mother's relational wounds. In many cultures, Male vulnerability was a survival liability, emotional repression. This kept many families safe in times of war or scarcity. And so today, this pattern still manifests as this emotional withdrawal. In order to heal, this requires conscious rewriting. Men must grieve this inherited stoicism that feeling is a sign of weakness, while women need to heal our father wounds that conflates love with pursuit, that we're always performing to be loved. But when a man allows himself to feel deeply loved by a woman, he is no longer an independent bachelor. He becomes tied to something beyond himself. And that, for many men, can be terrifying. When I see women online bashing men saying that they're trash, yet they're so desperate to find someone to love them, you're speaking from your wounded ego. You're speaking from the wounding from your emotionally absent parent. So blatant how your father wounding or neglect is affecting your life because you are projecting this to other people. Yes, there are also terrible men out there, but I don't think we come into this world evil. When you see a baby, they're just pure love. They're divine. It is our traumas and upbringing that shapes us how we are. And sometimes we are not taught to feel. As women, if we want to make men soften, we have to be embodied, to feel safe in our own bodies because we are the ones holding space, creating a safe, loving, compassionate container for our partners to step into so that they can also feel safe in their feminine energy, in their mind, body, and spirit. And only when us feminines are masculine energy, like embodied masculine energy, not the overworking type, like I can be the boss girl, whatever, that deep masculine of groundedness, that deep masculine energy within us, where we feel safe in our body, that we can self source that energy, that we don't have to seek validation outside of us, that we are just enough. We have enough self respect and self love that others can also feel safe in their mind, body, and spirit. It's really about being the bigger person, being the more emotionally mature one. And this goes both ways. Your strength might be his weakness, and your weakness might be his strength. It's physics, positive and negative, and balancing both energies is so crucial. There is a way to allow your partner or anyone to feel safe, to open up to you so deeply that they can cry from the emotions they've been bottling up and finally admit what's been weighing on their hearts. It's not manipulation, it's about understanding human psychology. And this is the power of connection, the secret trigger that makes a man break down his emotional walls. In my sessions, I would have clients cry, laugh hysterically, convulse, all kinds of somatic reactions. It's all that pent up emotions that's stored in our bodies. They are receiving my frequencies and it just hits right. The things that I ask them makes them think about themselves. The introspection that happens when somebody asks you the right questions is just life changing. And if you want anyone to unlock their truth, you have to be emotionally vulnerable and become a better healer. To enhance your intuition, you need to stop being rigid. You have to let go of control and allow that receiving energy. I'm a triple water sign, so it comes naturally to me, but my masculine side is something that I had to really work hard on. Balancing those emotions, those energies, is what truly makes you limitless because now you're using both sides of your brain. You need to understand this. Absolutely no one shares their raw, unfiltered truth in an environment where they feel judged, dismissed, attacked, or unsafe. If they sense hostility, if they sense a threat, even an emotional one, they will shut down they will withdraw or become defensive. They are doing this because our monkey brains are wired for survival. It's just biology. If you want to get past all of this rehearsed answers, this polite deflections, then you have to create this environment where he feels psychologically safe. But you're not really able to do that if you don't feel safe in your own bodies. So, working on your embodiment even more and your groundedness, feeling safe, your nervous system is safe, you allow others to also soften up. Listening more than you speak, asking questions, not to corner him, but to untangle his own thoughts. The truth is, most people, men or women, don't even fully understand what they are feeling half the time. And so you ask, then invite to step forward. This is an opportunity to be seen and not to be judged. My goal is to be like the sun, where everyone that comes to me, they feel nourished. They can't help but grow towards me too. And I hope that more women can be like that. In most relationships, when we are faced with resistance, we push harder, we demand, we criticize. And so, what does that do? It just reinforces belief that it's safer to stay silent, that talking will only lead to an argument, that when they open up, it will only result in more conflict. So he withdraws further, and you get angrier, and the cycle continues. In my experience, I watched my mother bully my father, and he would just retreat, stay silent, because it was too much effort to argue. I want to break that cycle. The key is not to demand vulnerability, but to inspire it. A man will only reveal his truest self when he believes that in doing so, this will not result in shame or punishment or rejection. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that he says. It doesn't mean that you have to tolerate any dishonesty or disrespect. It is us approaching conversations with curiosity rather than accusation. This requires a lot of patience, and this is where you can show your emotional growth, all of the practices, the tools that you've learned. Deep down, everyone wants to be seen, acknowledged, and understood. The moment a man feels safe enough to be vulnerable is the moment he starts to bond with you. You give them space, you hold strong in your boundaries, and you are clear of what you want. Remain calm and grounded and poised. One of the things that I've learned from my teacher, Kasia, is to be very detailed of your ask. Be very detailed of what it is that you want, and you allow the other person to respond after. Give them space, but be very clear of what you want. Don't be afraid to ask. I know that's a whole nother lesson about the good girl syndrome. You must resist that impulse to rush in and rescue him from his own hesitation, because that silence later will become so unbearable. It forces him inwards. It's why in therapy and interrogation they use silence. It forces him to examine what he actually thinks, what he actually feels, and why he's holding back. Most people will do almost anything to break that uncomfortable silence. And in that pressure, the truth can emerge. Maybe it's messy, maybe it's incoherent at first, but at least it's real. I hope that this gave you a little bit of clarity and helped you contemplate some of the things in your relationship of you being as a woman or you being as a man. If you need any assistance, I have my one on one coaching, my quantum resonance therapy, or my ascension. I also have meditations on my shop that you can check out and some workbooks. I hope that you like the session, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.